Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about Cavalier poets. Who were they and what were their features? So let's start the video. So it was a group of poets in the 17th century that included Robert Herrick, Richard Lovelace, Sir John Suckling, and Thomas Carey. So let's discuss the features of their poetry. So it was a group of English poets who wrote during the reign of King Charles I from 1625 to 1649 until his death. So they were known for their elegant and witty style of poetry, and that was highly praised by King Charles himself. So the Cavaliers also wrote in reaction to the strict Puritanism of their time. You know that since 1650s to 1660, there was a strict rise in Puritanism where they criticized fun-loving and sensual use of language, and they were very critical of everything. So they criticized these traits of Puritans, and they celebrated the pleasures of life like love and nature, and they also wrote about chivalry. They often wrote about love and pleasures of the senses. So they wrote a lot of love poems addressing to their love interests or to their mistresses. Their poems were filled with vivid imagery and sensual language, like I mentioned, and their poems often reflect the ideals of courtly love and chivalry. So there are many poems by Richard Lovelace, Robert Herrick that talk about the similar themes. So now let's discuss the famous works by the group and individual poets in the group. So Robert Herrick wrote a book called Hesperides that has collection of 1,000 poems that includes one of like many of his best known pieces. And his famous poems are To the Virgins, To Make Much of Time. It is also mentioned in the film Dead Poets Society, and I also love this poem. And then we have Delight in Disorder, To Anthea Who May Command Him Anything. Now we have Richard Lovelace, who was a courtier who wrote poems about love, honor, and loyalty. And his poems are To Lucasta Going to the Wars, To Althea from Prison, that is most recognizable poems in English language and admired by many. Then there is The Soldier. Then we have Suckling, who was a courtier and playwright, and who wrote witty and playful poems about love and society. And his famous poems are Ballad Upon a Wedding. Uh, it is a funny poems. It is a funny take on a wedding that goes wrong. Then we have a soldier. I Preeti send my back my heart, and then a doubt of martyrdom. Then the final poet in the list is Thomas Carey, and he was also known for his wittiness and humor. His famous poems are Disdain Returned, an elegy upon the death of the Dean of Paul's, Dr. John Donne, a song when June is past the fading rose. I mean, apart from this, the theme of Carpe Diem was running through their poems. Like the main example of that is to the virgins on May to the virgins to make much of time. Now, after the execution of King Charles, when Puritans charged him with lewdness and his rule that was full of tyranny, that's what they claimed. He was executed on in July 1649. After that, they fell out of favor from many people. And Cavalier poets fell out of favor in the 18th and 19th centuries, and people thought their poetry lacked the depth and seriousness of poetry that it should have, and their poetry was deemed as frivolous and superficial. But in the 20th century, late 20th century, there was a renewed interest in the Cavalier poets, and their work was re-evaluated and appreciated for its elegance, wit, and charm. Now, let's conclude this discussion. After King Charles' execution in 1649, the Cavaliers continued to support the royalist cause. So basically, the Puritans, they were fighting against the monarchy. They wanted a government that was chosen by people, but Cavaliers wanted to support the royalist cause, and they supported Charles I's son, and they wanted him to become the head of the crown. And many of them went into exile or lost their patronage after the defeat of Charles I. So he fought for his cause. He wanted to become the king, Charles I's son, Charles II. But once he got defeated by the Puritans and other external forces, so many of the Cavaliers and their supporters, they went into exile, and their work came under the scanner under the Puritan government. Their work was checked for lewdness, and the themes they thought were not good for the society. But after the restoration, when the monarchy was restored in 1660, their status improved somewhat, but they were not as influential they were during the reign of King Charles I. I hope you liked the discussion. Thank you.